A loyal Labrador retriever mourns his owner's sudden passing, unaware that a hidden engraving on his collar holds a secret that could mend broken bonds. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe our channel, Pause Verve. If this story touches your heart, please like the video and share it with others. The morning sun spilled golden light across the cobblestone streets of Willow Creek, a small town nestled between rolling hills and whispering pines. The air carried the sweet scent of blooming jasmine from neatly tended gardens, mingling with the warm buttery aroma wafting from Thornton's Bakery at the heart of Main Street. The bakery's faded green awning fluttered in the gentle breeze, and its large front window glowed with the promise of fresh pastries. Inside, Emma Thornton, a woman with silver-streaked auburn hair and a smile that could melt the frostiest morning, moved with practiced grace behind the counter. Her apron, dusted with flour, bore the faint outline of a paw print, a mark of her constant companion Jasper, a 3-year-old Labrador retriever whose golden fur shimmered like the sunlight outside. Jasper lay sprawled near the counter, his tail thumping rhythmically against the worn wooden floor. His chocolate-brown eyes followed Emma's every move, though they flicked occasionally toward the door, ready to greet the next customer with the enthusiastic wag. The bell above the door jingled, and Mrs. Clara Peterson, the town's retired librarian, shuffled in, her cane tapping softly. "Morning, Emma," she called, her voice bright despite the early hour. "Got any of those cinnamon rolls left?" Emma's laugh, warm and musical, filled the shop. "Saved one just for you, Clara. Jasper's been guarding it, haven't you? Boy?" She reached down to scratch behind Jasper's ears, and he let out a contented huff, his tail sweeping faster. Clara chuckled, leaning down to pat Jasper's head. "This one's the real boss around here," she said, winking. Jasper's eyes sparkled as if he understood, and he nudged Clara's hand, earning a delighted giggle. The bakery was more than a business. It was Willow Creek's heart. Farmers stopped by before heading to their fields, teachers grabbed coffee between classes, and children pressed their noses against the glass case, eyeing frosted cookies. Emma knew everyone's orders by heart. Black coffee for Mr. Daniels, blueberry scones for the knitting club, extra glaze on the donuts for the sheriff's deputies. She listened to their stories, offered a kind word, and slipped an extra treat into their bags when she thought they needed cheering. Jasper, ever at her side, was her partner in this quiet ministry of kindness. He'd rest his head on a child's knee to soothe a scraped elbow, or sit patiently while an elderly customer recounted old tales, his steady presence a comfort as reliable as Emma's smile. Emma had lived in Willow Creek her whole life, raising the bakery from a dream into a cornerstone of the community. At 52, her hands bore the calluses of years kneading dough, and her eyes crinkled with laugh. Lines that told of a life well lived. She never married, though townsfolk often speculated about her heart. "Jasper's all the company I need," she'd say, her tone light but firm, and no one pressed further. Jasper had come to her as a gangly puppy, a gift from a friend who knew Emma needed a friend after her mother's passing. From the moment he stumbled into her kitchen, tripping over his own paws, Emma was smitten. She trained him with patience, teaching him to carry baskets, fetch her apron, and even alert her when the oven timer buzzed. His intelligence and loyalty amazed her, and their bond grew into something deeper than pet and owner. They were family. This morning the bakery hummed with its usual rhythm. Emma slid a tray of fresh muffins into the oven, while Jasper watched, his nose twitching at the scent of blueberries. Outside, the town was waking up. Delivery trucks rumbled past, and joggers waved as they ran by. Emma hummed an old folk tune, her voice soft but clear, and Jasper's ears perked as if he recognized the melody. She glanced at him, her heart swelling. "What would I do without you, Jasper?" she murmured, tossing him a small piece of plain scone which he caught mid-air with a playful snap. The bell jingled again, and young Tommy Hayes burst in, his backpack bouncing. "Miss Emma, can I get a cookie for my lunch?" he asked, already, reaching for the jar of dog treats Emma kept for Jasper's admirers. Emma raised an eyebrow, mock stern. "Only if you say, 'pretty please,' first." Tommy grinned, complying, and Emma handed him a chocolate chip cookie while he slipped. Jasper a treat. Jasper crunched happily, his tail ablur, and Tommy laughed, rubbing the dog's ears. Moments like these, small and fleeting, were the threads that wove Willow Creek together, with Emma and Jasper at the center. As the morning wore on, Emma noticed Jasper's collar, a new one she'd put on him just last week. Unlike his old, leather one, this collar was ornate, with delicate patterns etched into its metal clasp. She'd found it in an antique shop, drawn to its craftsmanship, though she hadn't yet puzzled out the faint markings that seemed to catch the light. "Fancy boy," she teased, adjusting it on Jasper's neck. He tilted his head, as if proud of his new accessory, and Emma laughed, unaware that the collar held a secret that would soon change everything. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows through the bakery's windows, and the line of customers grew. Emma worked with her usual cheer, but there was a quiet weight in her movements, a subtle fatigue she brushed off. Jasper, ever watchful, stayed close, his warmth a steady anchor. Willow Creek carried on, oblivious to the storm gathering on the horizon, one that would test the town's heart and reveal the depth of Jasper's devotion. The afternoon sun hung low over Willow Creek, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose as the usual bustle of Thornton's bakery slowed to a gentle hum. Emma. Thornton wiped down the counter, her movements deliberate but slower than usual, a faint flush on her cheeks that she attributed to the oven's warmth. Jasper, her golden Labrador retriever, lay in his favorite spot by the door, his head resting on his paws. His eyes, usually bright with anticipation for the next customer, were fixed on Emma, a subtle tension in his posture, as if he sensed something amiss. The bakery was quieter now, with only a few lingering patrons sipping coffee at the corner tables, their soft chatter blending with the clink of ceramic mugs. Emma paused, pressing a hand to her chest, her breath catching slightly. "Just need a moment, Jasper," she murmured, offering him a reassuring smile. Jasper's ears twitched and he lifted his head, a low whine escaping his throat. She waved him off gently, reaching for a glass of water, but her hand trembled as she set it down. The bell above the door jingled, and Mr. Daniels, the hardware store owner, stepped in, his weathered face creasing with concern. "Emma, you all right? You look a bit peaky," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "I'm fine, Tom, just a busy day," Emma replied, her voice steady despite the tightness in her chest. She turned to fetch his usual black coffee, but a sharp pain lanced through, her stealing her breath. Her knees buckled and she gripped the counter, the glass of water tipping over with a soft clatter. Jasper was on his feet in an instant, barking sharply, his deep voice echoing through the bakery. Mr. Daniels rushed forward, catching Emma as she slumped, her face pale. "Call 911!" he shouted to the startled customers, who scrambled for their phones. The minutes that followed were a blur of panic and urgency. Jasper paced frantically, his barks turning to desperate whines as he nudged Emma's limp hand. Paramedics arrived, their radios crackling, and the bakery filled with the sharp scent of antiseptic and the rustle of medical bags. They worked quickly, their faces grim, but Emma's eyes remained closed, her chest still. Jasper pressed close, his nose brushing her arm, his whimpers raw with fear. The paramedics gently moved him aside, and one, a young woman with kind eyes, knelt to stroke his head. "It's okay, boy, we're trying," she whispered, but her voice trembled. Outside, a crowd gathered, drawn by the flashing ambulance lights that cast eerie shadows across Main Street. Neighbors whispered, hands clasped, as the paramedics wheeled a covered stretcher out, their movements slow and respectful. Jasper followed, his paws silent on the bakery's wooden floor, his body low to the ground. When they reached the ambulance, he let out a mournful howl, a sound that pierced the twilight and sent shivers through the onlookers. His tail, usually a blur of joy, hung lifeless, and his eyes, wide and searching, stayed fixed on the stretcher until the ambulance doors closed. Word of Emma's passing spread like wildfire through Willow Creek. By evening, the bakery's windows were dark, a rare sight that felt like a wound in the town's heart. Townsfolk gathered outside, leaving flowers and handwritten notes taped to the door. "Thank you for your kindness, Emma. You made us feel like family." Some wept openly, others stood in stunned silence, unable to grasp that Emma, the woman who'd baked their wedding cakes and comforted them through losses, was gone. The cause, the coroner later confirmed, was a sudden heart attack, unforeseen, unstoppable. Jasper refused to leave the bakery steps. Mrs. Clara Peterson tried coaxing him with treats, and Sheriff Tate offered to take him home, but Jasper planted himself firmly, his golden fur stark against the fading light. His soft whimpers carried through the quiet street, each one a plea for Emma to return. His collar, the ornate one Emma had recently given him, glinted faintly, unnoticed by the grieving townsfolk. Children reached out to pet him, their parents' eyes brimming, but Jasper's gaze remained on the door, as if willing it to open. Dr. Sarah Coleman, the town's veterinarian, arrived as dusk settled, her weathered SUV pulling up outside the bakery. She stepped out, her veterinary bag slung over her shoulder, her face etched with sorrow. Sarah had known Emma for years, treating Jasper since he was a puppy, and the news had hit her hard. She approached Jasper slowly, her boots soft on the cobblestones. "Hey, buddy," she said, her voice thick. Jasper's ears flicked, recognizing her, but he didn't move. Kneeling beside him, Sarah ran a hand over his trembling flank, feeling the tension in his muscles. "I know, boy. I miss her too." The town's grief mirrored Jasper's, a shared ache that bound them together. Emma had been their anchor, her bakery a haven, and Jasper her joyful shadow. Now, with her gone, the Labrador's sorrow became a reflection of their own, his loyalty a reminder of the love they'd all lost. Yet, in the quiet of that evening, as Sarah sat with Jasper under the bakery's awning, the first threads of a mystery began to unravel, hidden in the glint of a collar and the heart of a dog who refused to let go. The evening air in Willow Creek grew cool as the last traces of sunlight faded, casting long shadows across the cobblestone street outside Thornton's bakery. The crowd of mourners had thinned, leaving behind a scattering of wilting flowers and flickering candles that glowed softly against the bakery's darkened windows. Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, remained steadfast on the steps, his body curled tightly as if guarding the memory of Emma Thornton. His low whimpers had softened into a quiet, rhythmic keening, each sound tugging at the heart of anyone who passed by. His once vibrant eyes were dulled with grief, fixed on the door that would never open for Emma again. Dr. Sarah Coleman knelt beside him, her veterinary bag resting on the ground. The faint scent of antiseptic clung to her faded green jacket, a familiar comfort to the animals she treated. Sarah, in her mid-40s with short-cropped brown hair and a face lined with both kindness and weariness, had seen her share of loss in Willow Creek. She'd treated broken bones, nursed sick pets, and sat with owners through tearful farewells. But Emma's sudden death felt personal. Emma had been more than a client. She'd been a friend who slipped extra muffins into Sarah's bag and always asked after her aging cat, Whiskers. Now, seeing Jasper's anguish, Sarah felt a pang of helplessness, a reminder that some wounds couldn't be stitched or medicated. "Hey, Jasper," she said softly, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. She reached out, her hand hovering until Jasper's ears twitched in recognition. His head turned slightly, and he leaned into her touch, his fur warm under her fingers. "You can't stay out here all night, buddy." Jasper's eyes met hers, and for a moment she saw a flicker of trust amidst his sorrow, a silent plea for her to make sense of his world turned upside down. Sarah's gaze drifted to the ornate collar around Jasper's neck, its metal clasp catching the flicker of a nearby candle. It was unlike the plain leather one she remembered from his last checkup 6 months ago. This one was heavier, with delicate etchings that seemed almost deliberate, like a craftsman's signature. She frowned, her curiosity piqued. Emma hadn't mentioned changing Jasper's collar, and Sarah knew her well enough to suspect there was a reason behind it. Emma was practical, not one for frivolous purchases, yet this collar looked expensive, purposeful. "Let's take a look at you," Sarah said more to herself than to Jasper. She gently ran her fingers along the collar, checking for any signs of irritation on his skin, a routine part of her examination, but her attention lingered on the clasp. The markings were too precise to be decorative scratches, but in the dim light, she couldn't make them out. Jasper shifted, his body tense as if sensing her scrutiny. She paused, stroking his head to calm him. "Easy, boy. Just making sure you're okay." Inside the bakery, Sarah coaxed Jasper to follow her, though he moved reluctantly, his paws dragging as if each step betrayed Emma. The familiar scent of sugar and cinnamon still hung in the air, now tinged with the stillness of abandonment. Sarah flicked on a single light, casting a soft glow over the empty display cases. She knelt again, opening her bag to retrieve a small flashlight. "Let's see what's going on with this collar," she muttered, directing the beam onto the metal. Jasper sat obediently, though his eyes darted to the counter where Emma used to stand, a soft whine escaping him. The flashlight revealed faint lines etched into the clasp, too small to read without magnification. Sarah's pulse quickened. She'd seen custom collars before, some with emergency contacts or medical alerts, but this felt different, secretive. She glanced at Jasper, whose gaze remained fixed on the door, and felt a surge of determination. If Emma had chosen this collar, it was for a reason, and Jasper's grief deserved answers as much as the town's. Sarah stood, brushing flour from her knees, and scanned the bakery. On the counter, she spotted Emma's ledger, a worn notebook where she tracked orders and expenses. Hoping for clues, Sarah flipped through it, finding meticulous notes in Emma's neat handwriting. 12 blueberry muffins for book club, extra glaze for Sheriff Tate. Tucked between the pages was a receipt from an antique shop in the next town dated 2 weeks ago for a custom dog collar. Sarah's brow furrowed. Why would Emma go out of her way for this? Outside, the wind rustled the awning, and Jasper's ears perked, his body tensing as if expecting Emma's footsteps. Sarah's heart ached for him. She knew he couldn't stay here alone, but taking him away felt like severing his last tie to Emma. "Come on, Jasper," she said gently, clipping a leash to his collar. "We'll figure this out at the clinic, you and me." Jasper hesitated, his paws planted, but after a moment he followed, his head low, trusting Sarah despite his sorrow. As they stepped into the night, the candles outside flickered, their flames dancing in the breeze. Sarah glanced back at the bakery, its darkened windows a stark reminder of the void Emma had left. Jasper's collar glinted faintly, a mystery waiting to be unraveled, and Sarah felt the weight of her role, not just as a vet, but as a keeper of Emma's legacy, whatever it might be. The Willow Creek Veterinary Clinic stood quiet under the starry sky, its modest brick facade illuminated by a single porch light. Inside, the air smelled of disinfectant and fresh straw, a comforting contrast to the heavy stillness of Thornton's bakery. Dr. Sarah Coleman led Jasper through the reception area, his claws clicking softly on the linoleum floor. The Labrador Retriever moved with a reluctant gait, his golden fur dulled by the weight of grief. His eyes, usually bright with curiosity, darted around the familiar space, searching for something or someone that wasn't there. Sarah's heart twisted as she watched him, knowing no treat or gentle word could ease the ache of Emma's absence. She guided Jasper to the examination room, its stainless steel table gleaming under fluorescent lights. "Up you go, buddy," Sarah said, patting the table. Jasper hesitated, his tail limp, but he obeyed, climbing onto the table with a heavy sigh. He sat, his posture slumped, and let out a soft whimper as Sarah began a routine check, heart rate, ears, eyes, more to keep him calm than out of necessity. "You're healthy as ever," she murmured, her hand steady despite the questions swirling in her mind. Her gaze kept drifting to the ornate collar around Jasper's neck, its intricate clasp glinting like a hidden promise. Sarah set her stethoscope aside and reached for Jasper's collar, her fingers brushing the smooth leather. "Let's take a closer look at this," she said, her voice low as if sharing a secret with the dog. Jasper tilted his head slightly, his brown eyes meeting hers with a flicker of trust. In the bakery's dim light, she'd only glimpsed the markings, but here, under the clinic's bright illumination, she could examine them properly. She unbuckled the collar gently, noting its weight, heavier than a standard one, as if crafted with purpose. The metal clasp was cool to the touch, its surface etched with faint, deliberate lines that seemed to form a pattern. She reached into a drawer for her magnifying glass, a tool she kept for inspecting small wounds or reading fine print on medication labels. Holding the clasp under the light, she peered through the lens, her breath catching as the markings came into focus. They weren't random scratches or decorative flourishes. They were numbers, precisely carved in a tight, orderly sequence. 42360171-589, she whispered, recognizing the format instantly. Coordinates. Her pulse quickened and she leaned back, the magnifying glass trembling slightly in her hand. Why would Emma engrave coordinates on Jasper's collar? What was she trying to say? Sarah glanced at Jasper, who watched her intently, his ears perked as if he understood the significance of her discovery. "What did Emma leave for you, boy?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jasper's tail gave a single slow wag, and he nudged her hand, his nose warm against her skin. The gesture felt like encouragement, a reminder of the bond he'd shared with Emma, a bond that clearly held secrets Sarah was only beginning to unravel. She set the collar down and pulled out her phone, her fingers hesitating over the screen. Typing the coordinates into her map app, she watched as a red pin dropped onto a familiar spot, Willow Creek Park, specifically a quiet grove near the duck pond where Emma often walked Jasper. Sarah's mind raced. She'd seen Emma there countless times, tossing a tennis ball for Jasper or sitting on a bench with a book, her laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. Was there something hidden in that grove? Something Emma wanted? Found? Sarah's thoughts turned to the receipt she'd found in Emma's ledger, the one from the antique shop. The timing, 2 weeks ago, suggested Emma had planned this deliberately, perhaps sensing her health was failing. But why hide coordinates on a dog's collar? Why not leave a note, a will, or tell someone directly? Sarah rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of the mystery. Emma was practical, not prone to theatrics, so this had to be important, something meant to be found, but only by the right person, at the right time. She reattached Jasper's collar, adjusting it carefully, around his neck. "You're carrying quite a message, aren't you?" she said, scratching behind his ears. Jasper leaned into her touch, his eyes soft but alert, as if urging her to keep going. Sarah stood, her resolve hardening. She couldn't ignore this, not with Jasper looking to her for guidance, his loyalty to Emma now her responsibility to honor. The clinic's clock ticked softly, marking the late hour. Sarah glanced at Jasper's temporary kennel, where a soft blanket waited, but she knew he wouldn't settle easily. His pacing earlier, his refusal to leave the bakery steps, spoke of a purpose beyond grief. "All right, Jasper," she said, grabbing her jacket. "We're not done yet. Tomorrow we'll check out that park. Whatever Emma left, we'll find it together." As she locked the examination room, Jasper followed close behind, his presence a steady comfort. The coordinates burned in Sarah's mind, a puzzle piece that promised answers, and perhaps a way to give Jasper and Willow Creek a measure of closure. Outside, the night was still, the stars bright above the sleeping town, and Sarah felt a spark of hope that Emma's final act might hold healing for them all. The first light of dawn crept over Willow Creek, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. Dr. Sarah Coleman stood outside the veterinary clinic, her breath visible in the crisp morning air. Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, sat beside her, his leash loosely clipped to the ornate collar that held Emma Thornton's mysterious coordinates. His eyes, though still shadowed by grief, held a spark of alertness, as if he sensed the importance of the day ahead. Sarah adjusted her scarf, her phone tucked in her jacket pocket with the map app open, the red pin marking the grove in Willow Creek Park. The weight of the unknown pressed on her, but Jasper's steady presence grounded her resolve. "Let's do this, boy," Sarah said, giving Jasper's leash a gentle tug. He rose, his tail giving a tentative wag, and followed her to her weathered SUV. The drive to the park was short, the town still waking as they passed sleepy storefronts and joggers braving the chill. Jasper pressed his nose against the window, his breath fogging the glass, his ears perked as if tracking a scent only he could sense. Sarah glanced at him, her mind racing with questions. What had Emma hidden? Why entrust it to Jasper's collar? The Labrador's loyalty to his owner was unshakable. and Sarah felt a growing responsibility to honor that bond. Willow Creek Park unfolded before them, its rolling lawns dotted with ancient oaks and the glimmering duck pond reflecting the rising sun. Sarah parked near the trailhead, her boots crunching on gravel as she led Jasper out. The grove, according to her phone, was a 10-minute walk, tucked behind a cluster of willows where the path curved toward a quiet clearing. She'd been there before, picnics with friends, evening strolls, but never with a purpose like this. Jasper strained slightly at the leash, his nose low to the ground, his movements purposeful. "You know where we're going, don't you?" Sarah murmured, quickening her pace to match his. The trail wound through tall grasses, the air sweet with the scent of dew-soaked earth. Birds chirped overhead, and a squirrel darted across the path, but Jasper ignored it, his focus unwavering. Sarah's heart thudded, a mix of anticipation and unease. The coordinates were precise, but what if they found nothing? Or worse, something she wasn't prepared to handle. She thought of Emma's ledger, the antique shop receipt, the deliberate choice of the collar. Emma had planned this, and Jasper was her messenger. Sarah tightened her grip on the leash, trusting the Labrador's instincts as much as her own. As they neared the grove, the willows parted, revealing a small clearing bathed in morning light. The duck pond sparkled nearby, its surface rippling with the breeze. Jasper's tail wagged faster, and he pulled harder, leading Sarah toward a massive willow tree, its branches cascading like a curtain. The coordinates pointed here, to the base of the tree where the ground was soft and moss-covered. Sarah knelt, her hands brushing the earth, while Jasper circled, his nose sniffing intently. "What is it, boy?" she asked, her voice hushed. As if the grove itself demanded reverence, Jasper pawed at the soil near the tree's roots, his movements deliberate, almost trained. Sarah's breath caught. She'd seen him fetch toys or alert Emma to the oven timer, but this was different, purposeful. She joined him, digging gently with her hands, the dirt cool and yielding. Her fingers brushed something hard, and she paused, her pulse racing. Carefully, she cleared away more soil, revealing a small, weathered metal box, its surface tarnished but intact, hidden just beneath the roots. It was no larger than a shoebox, with a simple latch that gleamed faintly. In the sunlight, Sarah lifted the box, her hands trembling slightly. Jasper sat beside her, his eyes fixed on the box, a soft whine escaping his throat. The weight of the moment settled over her. This was Emma's secret, entrusted to Jasper, and now in her hands. She glanced at the Labrador, his golden fur glowing, in the dawn, and felt a surge of gratitude for his unwavering devotion. "Good boy," she whispered, scratching his ears. Jasper leaned into her, his warmth a steady anchor as she prepared to open the box and uncover the truth Emma had left behind. The latch was stiff, but gave way with a soft click. Sarah hesitated, her mind flashing to Emma's warm smile, her quiet strength. Whatever was inside it was meant to be found, and Jasper had led her here for a reason. She took a deep breath, the grove silent except for the rustle of leaves and Jasper's steady breathing, and lifted the lid, ready to face whatever lay within. The morning light filtered through the willow branches, casting dappled shadows across the small clearing in Willow Creek Park. Dr. Sarah Coleman knelt beside the ancient tree, the tarnished metal box resting in her hands, its weight both physical and emotional. Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, sat close, his brown eyes locked on the box, his tail still for the first time since they'd entered the grove. The air was thick with anticipation, the only sounds the gentle lapping of the nearby duck pond and the soft rustle of leaves overhead. Sarah's fingers hovered over the open latch, her heart pounding with the certainty that whatever lay inside held the key to Emma Thornton's final secret. She lifted the lid slowly, the hinges creaking faintly. Inside, nestled on a faded velvet lining, lay a bundle of handwritten letters tied with a thin blue ribbon, their edges yellowed but carefully preserved. Beside them was a small cloth pouch, its drawstring pulled tight. Sarah's breath caught as she lifted the letters first, their weight light but profound. The top envelope bore a single word in Emma's familiar, elegant script. Lily. Sarah's brow furrowed. Emma had never mentioned a Lily, not in all their years of friendship, not in the countless conversations over coffee and muffins, yet the name was written with a tenderness that suggested deep significance. Jasper whined softly, nudging Sarah's arm with his nose, as if urging her to continue. She glanced at him, his golden fur catching the sunlight, and felt a pang of horror at his role in this moment. "All right, boy," she murmured, untying the ribbon with careful fingers. The first letter unfolded easily, its paper crisp despite its age. Emma's handwriting filled the page, each word deliberate, heavy with emotion. Sarah began to read aloud, her voice soft in the quiet grove. "My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry I never had the chance to say these words to you in person. You are my daughter, born when I was too young and too scared to be the mother you deserved. I gave you up for adoption 30 years ago, believing it was the only way to give you a better life. Not a day has passed that I haven't thought of you, wondered about you, loved you from afar." Sarah's voice faltered, tears pricking her eyes. She paused, looking at Jasper, who tilted his head, his eyes steady as if he understood. Emma had a daughter, an estranged daughter she'd kept secret from everyone, even her closest friends in Willow Creek. The revelation was staggering, reshaping everything Sarah thought she knew about her friend. She continued reading, her voice trembling. "I've watched you from a distance, Lily, through newspaper clippings and art galleries online. Your paintings are beautiful, full of the spirit I always hoped you'd have. I was too ashamed to reach out, too afraid you'd hate me for what I did, but I've saved everything I could, hoping one day it might help you chase your dreams." Sarah set the letter down, her hands shaking. She reached for the cloth pouch, loosening the drawstring to reveal a modest stack of cash, crisp bills wrapped in protective cloth, likely Emma's life savings from years of running the bakery. A smaller note was tucked inside in Emma's hand. "For Lily's gallery, let her create. Emma." The amount wasn't vast, but in a town like Willow Creek, it was enough to change a life, to fund a dream like opening an art gallery. She leaned back, the box resting on her lap, and looked at Jasper. "She did this for her daughter," Sarah whispered, piecing it together. The coordinates on Jasper's collar, the hidden box, the letters. It was all part of Emma's plan to reach Lily, to make amends in the only way she knew how. Jasper's role was no accident. Emma had trained him, trusted him to carry this message beyond her life. His loyalty, his persistence in leading Sarah here, was a testament to that trust. Sarah rifled through the other letters, each one a window into Emma's heart. They chronicled her regret, her pride in Lily's achievements, her quiet visits to art shows in nearby cities to see Lily's work without revealing herself. One letter mentioned Jasper. "I trained him to find you, Lily, if I couldn't. He's smarter than most people, and he'll know you when he sees you." Sarah's throat tightened. Emma had poured her love into Jasper, making him the bridge to a daughter she'd lost. The grove felt sacred now, a place where Emma's truth had been unveiled. Sarah closed the box, clutching it to her chest, and stroked Jasper's head. "You did it, boy," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You brought us here." Jasper's tail thumped softly and he pressed closer, his warmth a reminder of the task ahead. Lily, whoever she was, deserved to know this truth, to receive Emma's gift. But finding her, delivering this message, would be no small feat, and Sarah felt the weight of that responsibility settle over her. The sun climbed higher, warming the clearing, and Sarah stood, the box secure in her hands. Jasper rose too, his eyes brighter now, as if a burden had lifted. The path back to the car stretched before them, but Sarah knew this was only the beginning. Emma's secret was out, and Jasper's mission was far from over. The sun rose higher over Willow Creek Park, its rays piercing the willow branches to warm the grove where Dr. Sarah Coleman stood, the metal box from Emma Thornton's secret cache still clutched in her hands. Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, sat at her side, his eyes fixed on her with an unspoken trust that weighed heavily on her heart. The letters and money inside the box, Emma's legacy for her estranged daughter Lily, felt like a sacred charge. But as Sarah's fingers traced the box's tarnished edge, a quieter, more troubling thought crept in. Her veterinary clinic, was drowning in debt, and the cash meant for Lily could be a lifeline. Sarah sank onto the mossy ground, the box resting on her lap. Jasper nudged her arm, his nose warm and insistent, as if sensing her turmoil. She scratched behind his ears absent-mindedly, her mind churning. The clinic's bills were relentless, equipment loans, rising rent, unpaid invoices for supplies. Last month she'd turned away a stray cat with a broken leg because she couldn't afford the surgery, a decision that still haunted her. The money in the box, modest but significant, could cover the overdue payments, keep the lights on, and save countless animals. It could mean the difference between closing her doors and continuing her work. But the letters. Emma's words to Lily were raw, filled with regret and love, a mother's final attempt to mend a broken bond. Sarah thought of Emma's smile, her quiet strength, the way she'd slip an extra muffin into Sarah's bag when she sensed a rough day. This money wasn't just cash. It was Emma's heart, her hope for Lily's future. To take it would be to betray Emma's trust, to rob Lily of a chance to know her mother's love. Sarah's stomach twisted, guilt battling desperation. She glanced at Jasper, whose steady gaze seemed to bore into her, his loyalty to Emma a silent rebuke. "What would you do, boy?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustle of leaves. Jasper tilted his head, letting out a soft whine, and rested his head on her knee. The gesture was so like Emma's gentle reassurance that Sarah's eyes stung with tears. She thought of Jasper's journey, his refusal to leave the bakery steps, his determination to lead her here. He'd carried Emma's secret across the key divide of death, and now he looked to Sarah to finish what Emma had started. The weight of his trust was almost unbearable. Sarah opened the box again, lifting the cloth pouch. The bills were crisp, wrapped with care, a testament to Emma's years of frugality at the bakery. She could almost hear Emma's voice, practical, yet kind. For Lily's gallery, let her create. But another voice, her own, whispered back, "No one knows about this. You could use it, pay it back later." The clinic's foreclosure notice loomed in her mind, the red ink, a constant shadow. She could save her practice, help more animals, justify it as a temporary loan. Lily might never know. Her fingers tightened around the pouch, and Jasper shifted, his body tensing. He let out a low, rumbling growl, not aggressive, but firm, as if warning her. Sarah froze, meeting his eyes. They were clear, unwavering, and in them she saw Emma, her integrity, her selflessness. Jasper's growl softened into a whine, and he nudged the box, his nose brushing the letters. The message was clear. This wasn't hers to take. Sarah's. Shoulders slumped, shame washing over her. "You're right," she said, her voice cracking. "This isn't mine. It's Lily's." She closed the box, her decision made, though the fear of losing her clinic lingered. Standing, she brushed dirt from her jeans, the grove's quiet beauty a stark contrast to her inner turmoil. Jasper rose too, his tail giving a single slow wag as if approving her choice. Sarah clipped his leash, her resolve hardening. She'd find Lily, deliver Emma's gift, and honor the trust Jasper and Emma had placed in her. The clinic's problems would have to wait. She'd find another way, one that didn't compromise her soul. As they started back toward the car, Sarah's mind shifted to the task ahead. The letters mentioned Lily's art, her shows in nearby cities. Sarah could search online, track down galleries, maybe find a last name or an address. It wouldn't be easy, but with Jasper by her side, she felt a flicker of hope. The Labrador walked with purpose, his head high, as if relieved by her choice. The path wound through the park, the duck pond shimmering in the morning light, and Sarah felt a quiet strength growing within her, fueled by Emma's love and Jasper's unwavering loyalty. The box felt lighter now, its contents a promise rather than a temptation. Sarah glanced at Jasper, his golden fur glowing in the sunlight, and smiled faintly. "Let's find her, Jasper," she said, her voice steady. "For Emma." Jasper's ears perked, and he let out a soft bark, his tail wagging with renewed energy. The journey was far from over, but Sarah knew they were on the right path, guided by a dog's devotion and a mother's hidden truth. The midday sun bathed Willow Creek in a warm, golden glow as Dr. Sarah Coleman drove her SUV away from the park. The metal box containing Emma Thornton's letters and money secured in the passenger seat. Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, sat in the back, his nose pressed against the window, his eyes scanning the passing streets with an intensity that belied his grief. The ornate collar around his neck glinted faintly, a reminder of the mission Emma had entrusted to him. Sarah's hands gripped the steering wheel, her mind racing with the next steps. Finding Lily, Emma's estranged daughter, was no longer just a moral choice. It was a promise to Jasper, whose unwavering loyalty seemed to demand action. Back at the veterinary clinic, Sarah settled into her cramped office, the box placed carefully on her desk amidst stacks of unpaid bills and patient charts. Jasper curled up on a blanket in the corner, his gaze never straying far from her. She powered on her laptop, the screen's glow illuminating her determined expression. Emma's letters had mentioned Lily's art, specifically paintings displayed in galleries in nearby cities. Sarah opened a browser and began searching, typing Lily artist paintings into the search bar, then refining it with names of towns within a 2-hour drive. Harrington, Milford, Crestview. The results were overwhelming. Art blogs, gallery listings, social media profiles. Without a last name, finding the right Lily felt like searching for a single star in a daylight sky. Sarah glanced at Jasper, whose ears perked as she sighed in frustration. "This is going to take some work, boy," she said, rubbing her temples. Jasper rose, padding over to nudge the box with his nose, a low whine escaping his throat. The gesture was so deliberate that Sarah paused, her eyes narrowing. She remembered Emma's letter. "I trained him to find you, Lily." Could Jasper, with his sharp intelligence and years of training, hold the key to locating her? Emma had taught him to fetch, to alert, to navigate tasks with uncanny precision. Perhaps she'd prepared him for this too. Sarah opened the box, lifting the bundle of letters. She untied the blue ribbon and held the top envelope to Jasper's nose. "You know her, don't you?" she asked, her voice soft but hopeful. Jasper sniffed the paper intently, his tail giving a slow wag. His body tensed and he let out a sharp bark, his eyes bright with purpose. Sarah's heart leapt. Emma had mentioned Jasper's search training, games where he'd find hidden objects, or track scents across the park. If Emma had exposed Jasper to Lily's scent even faintly, he might recognize it. "Let's try this," Sarah said, grabbing her keys and the letters. She led Jasper to her SUV, the Labrador's energy palpable as he jumped into the back seat. Sarah drove to the edge of Willow Creek, where the road split toward Harrington, the nearest city with a known art scene. She'd found a gallery online, the Crestview Art Collective, that hosted emerging artists, a possible lead for Lily's work. The plan was simple: let Jasper guide her, using his instincts to narrow the search. It was a long shot, but Jasper's determination fueled her own. In Harrington, the gallery was a sleek, modern space with large windows and abstract sculptures in the courtyard. Sarah parked and clipped Jasper's leash, carrying the letters in a small bag. Inside, the air was cool, smelling of polished wood and paint. Paintings lined the walls, vivid landscapes, moody portraits, bold abstracts. Sarah approached the curator, a wiry man with round glasses, and explained she was looking for an artist named Lily. "No last name, I'm afraid," she said, offering a sheepish smile. "She might have shown here recently." The curator frowned, scanning his tablet. "We've had a few Lilies over the years, but no current exhibitors by that name. Any other details?" Sarah hesitated, then pulled out the top letter, showing him the word Lily in Emma's script. "This is all I have, but my dog, he might recognize something." The curator raised an eyebrow but gestured to the gallery. "Feel free to look around." Sarah led Jasper through the exhibits, his nose low, sniffing the air. He moved methodically, pausing at certain paintings, his tail wagging faintly. At a corner display he stopped, his body rigid, and let out a sharp bark. The painting was a vibrant seascape, waves crashing under a stormy sky. Signed simply Lily M. Sarah's pulse quickened. She flagged the curator. who confirmed the artist Lily Munro had shown there last month and lived in Harrington. He provided a contact address, a small studio a few blocks away. Outside, Jasper's energy surged, his leash taut as he pulled Sarah toward the studio. The streets buzzed with midday traffic, but Jasper navigated with purpose, his nose twitching as if following an invisible thread. Sarah's heart raced. Emma's training had given Jasper a gift, a way to bridge the gap between mother and daughter. The studio was a narrow brick building, its windows papered with flyers for art shows. Sarah knocked, Jasper sitting alertly beside her, the letters clutched in her hand. A woman answered, mid-30s, with paint-splattered jeans and dark hair tied in a messy bun. Her eyes, a striking hazel, held a guarded curiosity. "Can I help you?" she asked, glancing at Jasper, who whined softly, his tail wagging. Sarah took a deep breath, holding up the envelope. "Are you Lily Munro? I have something from Emma Thornton." The woman's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition, then wariness. Jasper leaned forward, his nose sniffing her hand, and Sarah knew they'd found her. The narrow street outside Lily Munro's art studio in Harrington buzzed with the hum of distant traffic, but a tense silence hung between Dr. Sarah Coleman and the woman at the door. Lily, with her paint-splattered jeans and guarded hazel eyes, stood frozen, her hand still on the doorknob as she processed Sarah's words. Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, strained gently at his leash, his nose twitching as he sniffed Lily's hand, his tail wagging with a quiet urgency. The ornate collar around his neck caught a glint of sunlight, a silent testament to Emma Thornton's hidden plan. Sarah held the bundle of letters, their edges worn but heavy with meaning, and felt the weight of the moment. This was the bridge Emma had built, and Jasper had led her across it. "Emma Thornton?" Lily repeated, her voice sharp with skepticism. "I don't know anyone by that name." Her eyes flicked to Jasper, then back to Sarah, narrowing slightly. "What's this about?" There was a defensiveness in her posture, a wall built from years of unanswered questions, and Sarah sensed the fragility of this first encounter. She tightened her grip on the letters, choosing her words carefully. "I'm Sarah Coleman, a veterinarian. From Willow Creek," she began, her tone steady but gentle. "Emma was someone important to you, even if you didn't know her. She passed away recently, and she left these for you." Sarah held up the bundle, the word Lily visible on the top envelope in Emma's elegant script. Jasper whined softly, pressing closer to Lily, his warm fur brushing her leg. The gesture seemed to unsettle her, and she took a step back, her expression hardening. "I think you've got the wrong person," Lily said, her voice clipped. "I don't have family in Willow Creek. I was adopted. I don't know any Emma." Her words were firm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt, a crack in her armor. She glanced at Jasper again, his eager gaze fixed on her, and her brow furrowed, as if his presence stirred something she couldn't name. Sarah nodded, expecting resistance. "I understand this is a lot to take in," she said softly. "Emma was your birth mother. She gave you up when she was young, and she never stopped regretting it. These letters, they're her way of reaching out, of telling you what she couldn't in life." Sarah paused, watching Lily's face, where confusion battled with curiosity. "Jasper, her dog, led me to them. Emma trained him to find you, to make sure you got this." Lily's gaze dropped to Jasper, who sat patiently, his tail sweeping the ground. His eyes, warm and knowing, seemed to pull at something deep within. "Her. A dog," she said almost to herself, her voice softer now. "Why would she? Why now?" She shook her head, her hands clenching into fists. "This doesn't make sense. If she cared, why didn't she find me? Why wait until she's gone?" Sarah's heart ached at the pain in Lily's voice, the years of abandonment surfacing in a rush. "Emma was scared," she said gently. "She thought you were better off without her, that she couldn't give you the life you deserved. But she followed you, Lily. She saw your art, your paintings. She was so proud. These letters explain it all, and there's money, too, for your gallery, for your dreams." Lily's eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and anger flashing across her face. "Money? You think that fixes anything? I didn't need her money. I needed—" Her voice broke and she turned away, her shoulders trembling. Jasper whimpered, inching closer until his nose nudged her hand. Lily froze, her breath hitching as she looked down at him. His gentle insistence, his unwavering attention, seemed to pierce her defenses, and for a moment she didn't pull away. Sarah took a cautious step forward, holding out the top letter. "Just read one," she urged. "You don't have to decide anything now, but Emma wanted you to know her heart. Jasper brought us here because he knows you're the one she meant this for." She hesitated, then added, "He's not just any dog, Lily. Emma trained him for this, for you." Lily stared at the letter, her fingers twitching as if drawn to it despite herself. Jasper let out a soft bark, his tail wagging faster, and Lily's lips parted in a reluctant half-smile. "You're persistent, aren't you?" she murmured to him, her voice thick. She glanced at Sarah, her expression softening just a fraction. "I don't know if I can do this, it's too much." "I know," Sarah said, her voice warm with empathy. "But you're not alone. Jasper's here, and I'm here. If you need me, just take it one step at a time." She placed the letter in Lily's hand, her touch light but steady. Lily's fingers closed around it, her eyes searching Sarah's face, then Jasper's, as if looking for a reason to trust. The studio door creaked behind Lily, and a faint scent of turpentine wafted out, mingling with the crisp afternoon air. Lily stepped back, clutching the letter, her gaze darting between the paper and Jasper. "I need time," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll read it, but don't expect me to just accept this." Sarah nodded, relief washing over her. "That's all I ask. We'll be in Willow Creek if you want to talk, or if you want to see where Emma lived, where she raised Jasper." She knelt beside Jasper, scratching his ears. "You did good, boy," she whispered, and he leaned into her, his eyes still on Lily. Lily managed a small nod, her fingers tracing the envelope's edge. "Thanks," she said, almost inaudible, then stepped inside, closing the door softly. Behind her, Sarah stood, Jasper rising beside her, his tail wagging gently. The confrontation had been raw, uncertain, but it was a start. Jasper's determination had brought them to Lily, and Sarah felt a flicker of hope that Emma's words would find their way into her daughter's heart. As they walked back to the SUV, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the street. Jasper's steps were lighter now, as if a weight had lifted, and Sarah smiled faintly. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Jasper by her side, she believed they could help Lily find her way to healing and to Emma's love. The late afternoon sun cast a warm amber glow over Harrington as Dr. Sarah Coleman and Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, walked back to her SUV. The encounter with Lily Monroe had left Sarah both hopeful and heavy-hearted, the weight of Lily's pain lingering like a shadow. Jasper's tail wagged gently, his ornate collar glinting as he glanced back toward the studio, as if reluctant to leave Lily behind. Sarah opened the car door, and Jasper hopped in, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet reassurance. "You did. Your part, boy," she said softly, scratching his ears. "Now it's up to her." The drive back to Willow Creek was quiet, the hum of the engine blending with Sarah's thoughts of Emma Thornton's letters and the daughter who might never fully embrace them. In her small studio apartment, Lily Monroe sat cross-legged on the floor, the single letter Sarah had given her resting unopened in her lap. The space was cluttered with canvases, paint tubes, and half-finished sketches, a testament to her restless creativity. The late daylight streamed through a cracked window, illuminating the envelope's handwritten Lily in Emma's elegant script. Lily's fingers traced the letters, her heart a tangle of anger, curiosity, and fear. She'd spent years building a life without knowing her birth parents, convincing herself she didn't need them. Now, this letter threatened to unravel that carefully constructed independence. Jasper's image lingered in her mind, his warm eyes, his gentle nudge, the way he'd looked at her as if he knew her. She thought of Sarah's words. "Emma trained him to find you." The idea that a dog could carry such a purpose, that her birth mother had planned this, was both absurd and oddly comforting. Lily's gaze drifted to a painting on her easel, a stormy seascape she'd poured her heart into after a particularly lonely night. She wondered if Emma had seen it, If she'd stood in a gallery, proud yet silent. The thought stung, but it also sparked a flicker of longing. With a shaky breath, Lily broke the envelope seal and unfolded the letter. Emma's words spilled across the page, each one deliberate and raw. My dearest Lily, I'm writing this knowing I may never see you, but I need you to know you were always in my heart. I was 19 when I had you, scared and broke, with no family to lean on. Giving you up was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I believed it was the only way to give you a chance at a better life. I've followed your art, your beautiful paintings, and they've filled me with pride. You have a gift, Lily, and I've saved what I could to help you share it with the world. Tears blurred Lily's vision, and she paused, her chest tight. She hadn't expected the words to hit so hard, to feel so personal. Emma's regret was palpable, her love undeniable, and yet the years of absence ached like an old wound. Lily read on, learning of Emma's life in Willow Creek, her bakery, her quiet visits to art shows to glimpse Lily's work. The letter ended with a plea. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you'll let Jasper show you the rest. He's my heart, and he'll lead you to what's yours. Lily set the letter down, tears streaming down her cheeks. She curled, her knees to her chest, overwhelmed by the collision of grief and connection. Jasper's face flashed in her mind, his steady presence a link to a mother she'd never known. She thought of the money Sarah mentioned, meant for a gallery, her dream, one she'd buried under years of financial struggle. The gesture felt like both a gift and a burden, a love she wasn't sure she could accept. Hours later, as dusk settled over Harrington, Lily stood and reached for her phone. She found Sarah's number, left from their brief exchange, and hesitated before dialing. When Sarah answered, her voice warm but cautious, Lily's words came in a rush. I read the letter, she said, her voice thick. I don't know what to do with it, but I want to see the rest. Can I come to Willow Creek, meet Jasper again? Sarah's relief was audible. Of course, Lily, whenever you're ready. Jasper's waiting, and so am I. They arranged for Lily to visit the next day, and as Lily hung up, she felt a strange lightness, as if a door had cracked open. She looked at the letter again, then at her paintings, and for the first time, she saw a thread connecting her art to a woman she'd never met, a shared passion, a legacy of creation. The next morning, Lily drove to Willow Creek, her heart pounding as the town's quaint streets came into view. Sarah met her outside the veterinary clinic, Jasper bounding forward with a joyful bark. His tail wagged furiously, and he pressed his head against Lily's leg, his warmth melting her lingering doubts. Hey, you, Lily whispered, kneeling, to stroke his fur. Jasper's eyes locked onto hers, and she felt an unexpected comfort, as if he carried Emma's love in his very being. Sarah handed Lily the bundle of letters and the cloth pouch, explaining how Jasper had led her to the hidden box in the park. Lily clutched the items, her fingers trembling as she opened another letter, reading silently, while Jasper rested his head on her lap. Each word deepened her understanding of Emma, her sacrifices, her quiet pride, her hope for Lily's future. The money, modest but heartfelt, was Emma's final gift, a chance for Lily to open the gallery she'd dreamed of since art school. Tears fell freely now, but they were softer, laced with gratitude. Lily looked at Jasper, his steady presence, grounding her, and then at Sarah, whose kindness had made this moment possible. She loved me, Lily said, her voice breaking. All this time she loved me. Sarah nodded, her own eyes misty. She did, and she trusted Jasper to show you. In that moment, under the clinic's porch light, Lily felt a shift. The pain of abandonment didn't vanish, but it was tempered by the truth of Emma's devotion. Jasper's tail thumped against the ground, and Lily smiled through her tears, stroking his golden fur. She wasn't ready to forgive fully, not yet, but she was ready to know more, to let Jasper and Emma's letters guide her toward healing. The late morning sun bathed Willow Creek in a gentle glow, its rays filtering through the budding trees that lined Main Street. Lily Monroe stood outside Thornton's bakery, the faded green awning casting a soft shadow over her. The building was closed, its windows dark, but the air still carried a faint sweetness, a lingering echo of Emma Thornton's legacy. Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, sat beside Lily, his ornate collar glinting as he leaned against her leg, his warm presence a steady comfort. Lily clutched the bundle of Emma's letters, her hazel eyes tracing the handwritten sign on the door, closed until further notice. The townsfolk's tributes, flowers, cards and candles, surrounded the steps, a testament to the love Emma had sown in Willow Creek. Lily's visit to the town, prompted by the emotional weight of Emma's letters, felt like stepping into a story she hadn't known she was part of. Dr. Sarah Coleman stood nearby, her hands in her jacket pockets giving Lily space to absorb the moment. "This was her heart," Sarah said softly, nodding toward the bakery. "Emma made this place a home for everyone." Lily nodded, her throat tight. She'd spent the morning at Sarah's clinic, reading more of Emma's letters, each one peeling back layers of a mother she'd never known. Jasper had stayed close, his gentle nudges easing the ache of her discoveries. As Lily gazed at the bakery, a familiar voice called out, "You must be Lily." Mrs. Clara Peterson, the retired librarian, approached, her cane tapping the cobblestones. Her eyes sparkled with warmth as she took in Lily's resemblance to Emma. The same auburn tint in her hair, the same thoughtful tilt of her head. "I knew your mother well. She'd be so happy you're here." Lily managed a small smile, surprised by the ease of Clara's welcome. Jasper's tail wagged, and he nudged Clara's hand, earning a chuckle. "And you, Jasper, you're still stealing hearts." Clara's words opened a floodgate. Soon others joined. Mr. Daniels from the hardware store, Sheriff Tate, the knitting, club ladies, all drawn by the sight of Jasper and the stranger who carried Emma's spirit. They shared stories of Emma's kindness, how she'd baked extra loaves for families in need, stayed open late to comfort a grieving neighbor, or slipped cookies to children who couldn't pay. "She always had Jasper with her," Mr. Daniels said, his voice gruff with emotion. "That dog knew everyone's order as well as she did." Lily listened, her heart swelling with pride and sorrow, piecing together a portrait of a mother who'd loved fiercely, even from afar. Lily knelt beside Jasper, stroking his golden fur. "You were her partner, weren't you?" she whispered. Jasper's eyes met hers, bright and knowing, and he let out a soft huff, as if agreeing. The townsfolk's warmth enveloped her, their stories weaving her into Willow Creek's fabric. She felt a connection to Emma, not just through the letters, but through this community that had been her mother's family. The pain of abandonment lingered, but it was softened by the realization that Emma's love had touched so many, including her. Inspired by the stories, Lily made a decision. She opened the cloth pouch from Emma's box, the modest sum of money, still wrapped carefully. "Emma wanted this for my gallery," she told Sarah and the gathered townsfolk, her voice steady despite her nerves. "But I think she'd want it to do more. I'd like to use part of it to restore the community center." It's what she'd have done. The center, a weathered building where Emma had hosted bake sales and town meetings, had fallen into disrepair. Lily's offer was met with gasps and murmurs of gratitude. "That's Emma's spirit right there," Clara said, her eyes misty. Sheriff Tate nodded, adding, "We'll name it after her, Thornton Hall." The crowd buzzed with excitement, already planning renovations and events. Lily felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of belonging she hadn't expected. Jasper barked, his tail wagging furiously, as if approving the plan. His joy was infectious, and the townsfolk laughed, their grief easing in the shared purpose of honoring Emma. Over the next few days, Lily stayed in Willow Creek, welcomed into Clara's guest room. She visited the bakery, helped clean its counters, and sorted through Emma's ledger, finding notes about her art shows tucked between recipes. Each discovery deepened her connection to her mother. Jasper was her constant companion, his playful energy returning as he bounded through the park or greeted children who stopped to pet him. His presence drew smiles from the town, and Lily saw him as more than Emma's messenger. He was Willow Creek's heart, a living link to her mother's love. One afternoon, Lily and Sarah organized a community meeting at the park, where townsfolk pledged time and resources for the community center's restoration. Lily shared Emma's story, not just her letters, but her quiet sacrifices, her pride in Lily's art. "She gave me up so I could have a better life," Lily said, her voice breaking. And she gave me Jasper to bring me back. Jasper, sprawled on the grass, lifted his head at his name, earning a ripple of laughter. The town rallied around Lily, offering to display her paintings in the restored centre, blending her art with Emma's legacy. As the meeting ended, Lily stood by the duck pond, Jasper at her side. The sun dipped low, painting the water in hues of gold and pink. She felt Emma's presence in the breeze, in the town's embrace, in Jasper's steady warmth. The community's healing mirrored her own, a collective step toward light after loss. Willow Creek had lost Emma, but through Lily and Jasper her love endured, stitching the town together in new ways. The early summer sun rose over Willow Creek, casting a soft golden light across the town's rolling hills and quiet streets. At the edge of the cemetery, where ancient oaks stood sentinel, Lily Monroe walked slowly, her steps measured, her heart full. Jasper, the golden Labrador retriever, padded beside her, his ornate collar glinting faintly, a symbol of the journey that had brought them here. In her hand, Lily carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, daisies and clover, picked from the park where Emma Thornton had hidden her final gift. The air was warm, scented with fresh grass, and the promise of a new season, and Lily felt a peace she hadn't known was possible. They reached Emma's grave, a simple headstone etched with her name and dates, its clean lines reflecting the understated grace of the woman who'd shaped so much of Willow Creek. Lily knelt, placing the wildflowers gently against the stone, her fingers lingering on the cool marble. Jasper sat beside her, his tail sweeping the ground, his brown eyes fixed on the headstone as if he too felt Emma's presence. The cemetery was quiet, save for the distant chirping of birds and the rustle of leaves, a sacred space where past and present intertwined. "Thank you, Mom," Lily whispered, her voice steady but thick with emotion, "for loving me, even when I didn't know it, for sending Jasper to find me." She pulled Emma's final letter from her pocket, its creases worn from countless readings, and traced the words that had changed her life. "I hope you'll let Jasper show you the rest. He's my heart." Lily's eyes brimmed with tears, but they were soft, not bitter, carrying gratitude rather than pain. "I wish we'd had more time," she said, "but I understand now. You did what you thought was best." Jasper whined softly, nudging her hand, and Lily smiled, stroking his golden fur. "You kept your promise, didn't you?" she murmured. His warmth, his unwavering loyalty, had bridged the gap between her and Emma, turning a stranger's gift into a mother's love. The letters had revealed Emma's heart, her sacrifices, her quiet pride, her hope for Lily's future, and Jasper had made them real, a living connection that healed wounds Lily hadn't known she carried. Lily stood, brushing dirt from her knees, and looked out over the cemetery, where Willow Creek's history rested in silent rows. She felt rooted here, tied to a town that had embraced her as Emma's daughter. The past weeks had been a whirlwind, moving to Willow Creek, restoring the community center, now named Thornton Hall, and planning her art gallery. The money from Emma's box had seeded both projects, a dual legacy of creation and kindness. Lily had donated a portion to the local animal shelter too, in Jasper's name, ensuring other pets found homes as loving as his. Later that morning, Lily visited the bank, where she finalized a savings account for her gallery's future. The teller, a kind woman who'd known Emma, processed the transaction with a warm smile. "Your mother would be so proud," she said, glancing at Jasper, who waited patiently by Lily's side. Lily nodded, her heart full. She set aside another portion for Thornton Hall's maintenance, ensuring Emma's name would live on in the town's heart. As she left the bank, the weight of the past seemed lighter, each step a testament to new beginnings. By afternoon, Lily and Jasper arrived at Willow Creek Park, where Thornton Hall stood revitalized, its fresh paint and new roof gleaming in the sunlight. The community had transformed it, with volunteers planting flower beds and installing benches, one inscribed with "In Memory of Emma Thornton." Inside, Lily's paintings hung alongside photos of Emma's bakery, a blend of their shared creativity. The opening celebration was underway, with townsfolk filling the hall. Clara Peterson sharing stories, children chasing Jasper, and Sheriff Tate cutting a ribbon. Jasper bounded through the crowd, his tail a blur, his joyful barks echoing Emma's spirit. Lily stood at the center, a glass of lemonade in hand, watching Jasper weave through familiar faces. Dr. Sarah Coleman joined her, her veterinary jacket swapped for a sundress. "You've done something amazing here," Sarah said, her eyes on the bustling room. "Emma's smiling, I know it." Lily smiled, grateful for Sarah's steadfast support. "I couldn't have done it without you or Jasper," she replied. Sarah laughed as Jasper trotted over, dropping a tennis ball at Lily's feet, his eyes bright with playfulness. That evening, Lily sat on a bench by the duck pond. Jasper sprawled beside her, his head resting on her lap. The sky burned orange and pink, reflecting on the water where ducks glided. She thought of Emma's letters, now framed in her new apartment above the bakery, a space she'd claimed as her own. The gallery would open soon, her paintings a tribute to the mother who'd believed in her. Lily's art, once a solitary refuge, now felt like a conversation with Emma, each brushstroke a shared dream. Jasper stirred, his tail thumping, and Lily leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. "We're family now, aren't we?" she whispered. His soft huff was answer enough, his loyalty a constant in her evolving world. Willow Creek had given her roots, Jasper had given her heart, and Emma had given her purpose. The pain of loss lingered, but it was woven into a tapestry of love, forgiveness, and hope. As the stars emerged, Lily stood, Jasper rising with her. They walked toward Thornton Hall, its lights glowing against the dusk, a beacon of community and memory. Lily felt Emma's love in every step, carried by Jasper, sustained by Willow Creek and alive in her own heart. The future stretched before her, bright with possibility, and she knew she'd never walk it alone.